Hollywood has always sold reinvention as part of the dream. Faces change, names evolve, legends rewrite themselves. Yet behind the glamour lies a quieter truth. Some transformations are not chosen for applause, but for survival. These journeys begin long before red carpets and flashing cameras, in private moments of doubt, fear, and longing. What you are about to hear is not about spectacle or scandal. It is about identity, resilience, and the cost of living honestly when the world prefers familiar illusions. Andrea Pejić. Andrea Pejić entered the fashion world as a contradiction the industry could not ignore. First known as Andrea Pejić, she built a career on androgyny, walking both menswear and womenswear runways with equal ease. Designers praised her uniqueness and audiences celebrated her difference, believing they were witnessing fearless self-expression. Privately, the experience felt incomplete. Growing up between Bosnia and Australia, Andrea carried an unspoken certainty that living as a man was not her truth. Fashion rewarded ambiguity, but it did not resolve identity. Success amplified the conflict rather than quieting it. The mirror reflected achievement, not alignment. In 2014, Andrea chose authenticity over safety. Transitioning publicly placed her career at risk in an industry obsessed with image and control. Instead of rejection, she found a new chapter. Andrea became the first openly transgender model to appear on the cover of GQ Portugal, reframing beauty as honesty rather than illusion. Her story is not about becoming visible, it is about becoming whole. Andrea's legacy rests in the reminder that fulfillment rarely comes from being admired, but from being truthful. Do you believe success makes self-discovery easier, or does it sometimes delay it? Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck remains one of classic Hollywood's most enigmatic figures. On screen, she projected strength, independence, and a toughness that set her apart from many of her contemporaries. Audiences saw a woman who refused to be fragile, who met hardship with resolve rather than sentimentality. Off-screen, that same resistance to convention shaped a private life that continues to invite speculation decades later. Throughout her career, Stanwyck moved comfortably within queer social circles, forming close relationships that did not align neatly with the era's expectations. She taught dance at a speakeasy known for its gay and lesbian clientele, and maintained long, discreet bonds with women who were central to her emotional world. Rumors followed her for years, fueled by anecdotes from peers and biographers, yet never confirmed by Stanwyck herself. Publicly, she married twice, relationships many historians later described as arrangements of image rather than intimacy. Whether those interpretations are accurate remains impossible to prove. What is clear is that Stanwyck guarded her private truth fiercely, at a time when openness could have ended a career overnight. Her legacy endures not because of labels, but because she quietly expanded what a Hollywood leading woman could be. Caitlyn Jenner. For much of the world, Caitlyn Jenner was first known as Bruce Jenner, the embodiment of athletic excellence and discipline. Winning gold at the 1976 Montreal Olympics cemented a place in American sports history and created an image of confidence, strength, and national pride. Yet behind that public triumph lived a struggle that fame could not quiet. From childhood, Jenner experienced a persistent disconnect between inner identity and outward expectations. In an era with little language or support, those feelings were buried beneath ambition. Athletics became a refuge, a way to outrun questions that felt impossible to answer. Adulthood followed a carefully constructed path of marriages, parenthood, and public success, even as the internal conflict remained unresolved. At 65, Jenner made the decision to live openly as Caitlyn, a choice that transformed not only a personal life, but a global conversation. Her 2015 Vanity Fair cover marked a cultural moment, presenting transition not as spectacle, but as dignity reclaimed. The response was immediate, passionate, and often divided. Caitlyn Jenner has remained a complex figure. Her impact is undeniable. She pushed conversations about identity and authenticity into the mainstream. Did her transition change how you view reinvention life? Carmen Carrera. Carmen Carrera first entered the public eye as a striking presence on reality television. Audiences met her on RuPaul's Drag Race, where glamour, precision, and confidence made her instantly memorable. At the time, many viewers understood her through the language of drag, assuming performance and identity were one and the same. For Carmen, that misunderstanding followed her long after the cameras stopped rolling. Privately, she was confronting a deeper truth. Living as a transgender woman was not a reinvention of a persona, but an affirmation of who she had always been. Transitioning in the public eye brought scrutiny, misgendering, and resistance, even from spaces that claimed inclusivity. Carmen chose visibility anyway, understanding that silence would cost more than criticism. Her willingness to speak out became a defining part of her legacy. When she challenged outdated language used on Drag Race, the reaction was mixed and often harsh. Still, Carmen stood firm, insisting that respect evolves with understanding. Over time, her message reshaped conversations within fashion and entertainment. Today, Carmen Carrera is recognized not only as a high-fashion model, but as a thoughtful advocate. Her journey reflects a quiet truth. Authenticity requires patience, and progress rarely arrives without friction. Chaz Bono. Chaz Bono was born into fame long before he understood himself. As the child of Cher and Sonny Bono, he grew up under constant attention, expected to fit a public image that never truly felt his own. For years, he lived as chastity, playing a role shaped by cameras and expectations that left little room for honesty. Inside, the disconnect grew heavier with time. Chaz struggled privately with identity and depression, feeling as though life was happening from the outside. The pressure of being a celebrity's child intensified that conflict, turning self-discovery into something carefully managed rather than openly lived. It took years before he was ready to choose himself over comfort and familiarity. In his 40s, Chaz began his transition, a process marked by medical steps and emotional recalibration under scrutiny. The change was not reinvention, but alignment. For the first time, his reflection matched his internal reality. Professionally, he moved forward as well, becoming the first openly transgender man to portray a male character in a major motion picture. His story is not about spectacle, but about finally feeling at home. How do you think pressure shapes the way people confront their true identity? Fallon Fox. Fallon Fox's path to professional fighting was shaped by resilience long before she entered the cage. Growing up, she sensed a deep difference between who she was and who the world expected her to be. Expressing that truth was not met with support. Family rejection and attempts to force change left lasting emotional scars, yet they did not erase her certainty. Transitioning was an act of survival rather than defiance. Without a safety net, Fallon rebuilt her life step by step, choosing authenticity despite isolation. When she entered mixed martial arts, she did so with discipline and seriousness, determined to be judged by performance rather than identity. For a time, she was simply another fighter earning her place. That changed when she publicly came out as transgender. The response was immediate and polarized. Supporters praised her courage, while critics questioned her right to compete. Debates over fairness quickly overshadowed her record and training, reducing a complex athlete to a single label. Fallon refused to retreat. She continued to compete, speak, and insist on nuance in a conversation driven by fear. Her legacy is not defined by wins or losses, but by visibility. She forced audiences to confront uncomfortable questions. Geena Rocero. Geena Rocero's life changed publicly in 2014, but her journey towards self-understanding began decades earlier. Born in the Philippines, she recognized herself as a girl at an age when most children are still learning language. Unlike many stories marked by rejection, Geena's family responded with acceptance, allowing her a rare foundation of safety and affirmation. By her late teens, she had undergone gender-affirming surgery and began building a modeling career abroad. Success arrived quietly. She walked runways, appeared in major campaigns, and navigated the fashion world without drawing attention to her past. For years, her transgender identity remained private, not out of shame, but out of concern that it would eclipse her work. That silence ended during a TED Talk that stunned audiences worldwide. Standing on stage, Geena revealed her truth with composure and clarity, transforming a personal disclosure into a moment of collective recognition. The response was immediate and largely supportive, including from industry professionals who had never questioned her place. Today, Geena Rocero is recognized not only as a model, but as an articulate advocate. Her story reframes visibility as choice, reminding the world that dignity can exist both in privacy and in openness. James Dean. James Dean became a symbol of restless youth almost overnight. On screen, his intensity felt raw and unscripted, capturing a generation that no longer trusted polished heroes. Off-screen, Dean resisted expectations just as fiercely, refusing to be confined by the rigid norms of Hollywood masculinity. Those who knew him described a man deeply uncomfortable with labels. While his romances with women were widely publicized, close friends and biographers later suggested that his private life was far more fluid. Relationships with men, often kept discreet, reflected an era when openness could destroy a career before it truly began. Dean never offered a clear declaration, and perhaps that ambiguity was intentional. What remains most revealing is his attitude toward identity itself. When questioned about his sexuality, Dean rejected binaries, insisting that life should not be lived with limitations imposed by fear. It was a philosophy that extended beyond romance, shaping his approach to art, fame, and rebellion. Dean's life ended before those questions could ever be resolved publicly. Yet his legacy endures as something larger than definition. He represented freedom, uncertainty, and the courage to exist without explanation. In many ways, that refusal to be categorized became his most lasting statement. Chaz Jennings. Chaz Jennings grew up with her story unfolding in real time before a national audience. Long before most children can articulate identity, Chaz knew who she was. As a toddler, she gravitated toward dresses and insisted on being recognized as a girl, correcting adults with calm certainty. What made her journey unusual was not only her clarity, but the support that surrounded her. Her family chose affirmation over fear, creating a home where honesty was not punished. That foundation allowed Chaz to step into public life at a young age, first through interviews and later through a television series that documented her everyday experiences. School, friendships, medical decisions, and moments of doubt were all shared without dramatization. Growing up publicly carried its own weight. Chaz faced criticism, misunderstanding, and relentless commentary from strangers who believed they had a stake in her life. Over time, that pressure contributed to anxiety and periods of withdrawal. Yet she continued forward, learning to separate her sense of self from public opinion. Chaz's impact extends beyond visibility. She changed how many people understand transgender childhoods, replacing fear with familiarity. Her story is not about perfection, but persistence, shaped by love, patience, and right to grow. Laverne Cox. Laverne Cox's rise to prominence was neither sudden nor effortless. Long before she became a familiar face on television, she navigated a childhood shaped by difference and isolation. Growing up in Alabama, she felt drawn to femininity at an age when deviation invited punishment. Bullying and social rejection became constants, teaching her early how costly visibility could be. Those experiences left deep emotional marks. As a young adolescent, the conflict between her inner truth and external expectations grew overwhelming, leading to a crisis that nearly ended her life. Survival became a turning point. It forged a quiet determination to live fully, even when the path forward remained uncertain. Moving to New York opened a door. There, Laverne began her transition and pursued acting with renewed clarity. Years of small roles and rejection followed, until a breakthrough arrived in Orange is the New Black. Her portrayal of Sophia Bursette was layered, human, and unflinching. It introduced millions to a transgender character defined not by identity alone, but by complexity and dignity. Since then, Laverne Cox has become a cultural voice, speaking about gender, media representation, and resilience. Her legacy rests in visibility earned through perseverance, and the reminder that survival itself can become purpose. Thanks for watching Hollywood Lost Secrets. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for more untold stories.